Hello, everyone. It's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland reviewer. Welcome to the Development Hell podcast, and it's the movie club again with four, maybe five of us. You'll find out. And we're here to talk about one of the greatest romantic comedies ever, and one of the many films in Rob Reiner's incredible string of films in the 1980s into the early 1990s, When Harry Met Sally, starring Billy Crystal, Meg Ryan, Carrie Fisher, and Bruno Kirby. And we got Joe, we got Vinnie, we got Matt, and Shane here. So to talk about this one, and like always, we'll do a little around the horn, just general thoughts and important things like how many times have you seen it? And are we taking Harry and Sally to Applebee's? But Joe, let's get things started with how many times have you seen this?
Okay, so I've seen this twice. The first time I saw it right after I saw Annie Hall, which is appropriate. I feel like both of those movies do share a lot of similar themes. And then the second time was with you in preparation for this podcast.
Mhm.
And I have to say, you know, other than The Princess Bride, I haven't seen a lot of Rob Reiner films, and I feel like that's a disservice because with what I've seen so far with Rob Reiner's movies, he it seems as though dialogue plays a really big role in the films, whereas it's the characters and what they're saying. And I would like to venture and say that he trusts his actors well enough to play up to their strengths. And a part of me also, I know a bit of a tangent, but a part of me wonders if that comes from his experience with All in the Family and being around such big personalities, because it's something that rarely ever, people ever bring up. But he did play Meathead, in All in the Family, and that show was already stacked with, amazing performances. But back to when Harry Met Sally, um, one thing that really stuck to me, actually a couple things that really stuck to me when watching the movie. Number one, a lot of New York pride. Let's just get that out of the way. I'm wearing my jerseys, my Rangers jersey tonight, partially in celebration of them, clinching the playoff spot, but also appropriately because there is a lot of New Yorkisms in this movie. There's
Mm.
anytime a movie is set in New York, there's certain things that I feel like it should capture. One, the sports fanaticism is in there. Like I love the fact that we were watching the movie together, and I go to you, Shane, and I'm like, wait a minute, is that the Phil Simms era New York Giants playing? Like it's such a little detail, but I mean, as a New Yorker, I think you look at that and you appreciate, and as well as the scenery and the aspects of the city, like the driving and sometimes the congestion, or sometimes things seeming cramped, but at the same time still feeling like you're a part of something bigger. I mean, all superficial things about the city, but I mean, overall, when you come to the heart of the story, when it comes to being a romantic comedy, one thing that I feel like really sticks out is that up to this point, I don't think, I mean, other than Annie Hall, you see a lot of romantic comedies that focus on relationships being rocky. And you could even argue that, in a sense, you don't know where this relationship ends up. Other than that, it just keeps going. And I think that's a better example with romantic comedies because I always feel like there's always this emphasis. I don't know if anybody else feels this way too. There's always this emphasis that it has to result in either a great relationship or a terrible relationship, and like how things should never seem to work out. Or, these people were made to be together. Whereas you can look at the end of the film and be like, they have their ups, they have their downs, but why should it always be about whether or not it's a great relationship versus being a horrible? Why not just be two people that care about each other, that have differences, but at the end of the day are just a good match, regardless of their differences. And I feel like that's what makes this film work so well. And, I do see myself watching a lot more outside of the New Yorkisms, but, again, we could talk more about it as we go into the podcast. But those are my general thoughts on the film.
And now to another New Yorker, Vinny. How many
Hey,
times have you seen this?
This was actually my first time, and just for the listeners, I'm getting over a respiratory infection, so I really can't stay on the episode for too long. And if I cough from time to time, I do apologize. But
How dare you?
cough. But but yeah, so this was my first time seeing it, and it actually was a movie that's been on my list for a while. So I'm glad I finally had an excuse to watch it, and I enjoyed it a lot. I had a fun time with it. Um, you know what? It's funny because like after watching this, like I was surprised how like I really never thought about like just how diverse Rob Reiner's like filmography was,
Mhm.
because like not only has he done like different things like within comedy, with like the mockumentary for This Is Spinal Tap, a comedy in a political setting the American President, or fantasy like the Princess Bride. But he does like more intense. He has more intense stuff like Stand By Me, Misery, and A Few Good Men. So like I mean maybe not so much. What?
No, I'm just laughing at Joe's
I had
frustration.
no idea he directed those movies.
Also, I
Oh
didn't know I
yeah.
wasn't
Yeah,
on mute. My
so
bad.
What?
Vinny, keep going.
so
Keep going.
here's the thing. Between 1986 and 1992, he directed 5 films in a row. Stand By Me, The Princess Bride, When Harry Met Sally, Misery, and A Few Good Men.
Amazing.
Oh yeah. Yeah, yeah. So I mean, like, unfortunately, not so much these days. But back then, he really did have like a great output in terms of directing, and I lost my train. Okay, yes, yes. So anyway, as far as when Harry Met Sally goes, I had a lot of fun with it, and I felt, despite it being only 90 minutes, I really thought like it did cover a lot of ground in terms of what I had to say about relationships. um I was pleasantly surprised in terms of like how the story unfolded, because I kind of just thought that it was a story about two people who just met in New York and just started from there. But no, like in the beginning of the story, they're both driving home from college. They separate, they meet again, separate again, and then meet again, and then meet again in in New York City. And like uh I'm glad, like I think I went into this movie knowing quite a bit about it, but also not knowing a lot about it. So so again, it was a good viewing experience, and I'm glad I finally got a chance to watch it.
Matt, how many times have you seen this one?
I saw this once in high school. The only thing I really remembered going into it this time was it's like the tiny little like 2 minute long like vignette of
Mhm.
like those couples who are actors, but I think the director, the screenwriter like talked to like real people and like I guess like collected like random stories. And I like that because it was kind of interesting. Like he was talking about young love, or like that one couple from a different country talking about like arranged marriage, I think. Like I don't know. I really like that. What did I think of the movie? I think that uh a lot of times when you watch a like a romantic movie and then people kind of like I don't know, like you feel like the relationship is really rushed, or and it's kind of like, oh, okay, so they're in love now, or you feel almost kind of like, even if the movie is awesome, you feel kind of like cheated, where it's kind of like, damn, like I want to know like what happens like afterwards. Um, this movie was really interesting because like it spans like so much time. Like I don't know how many years like it are in between, but it's like a relationship, like a marathon of a relationship. Like people just like meeting each other accidentally, kind of like butting heads. Uh, the introduction of like introducing like their friends into the mix, and then their friends like getting together, and like it was a very interesting kind of like just a full, incredibly like realistic feeling when I was watching like the entire thing. And I felt like I saw like almost all like the aspects like of them, like their ideological differences. I guess kind of like maybe a little bit of like their love languages. I think like Meg Ryan's more physical touch, and the other one is like maybe it's like extra, I don't know, whatever. But I don't know, it was just like it was like a really awesome, complete movie. Which after I saw it, like interestingly, like I was on YouTube, and then like one of the recommended pages was Rob Reiner being interviewed by one like late night host, and he was like the original ending was supposed to be sad, and then he I think met his wife, something like that. I might be messing this up. Something like he met his wife around the same time that he was like filming this, and it was like, okay, wait, no, this needs to be hopeful. Like this, I actually I feel this way. I think he was like single for like a like a like a long period of time, or a period of time that he considers to be long, and then he met someone that he ended up marrying. He's like, no, like love is real, like blah blah blah, and then he like changed it in the end, which I thought was just like really awesome. And I think also like for the better too. You know what I mean? Like sometimes I feel like some movies they kind of like I feel like they choose the sad ending just to kind of like to shock you, but it's kind of like I don't know, life is already like that. Like sometimes you want to go to the movies because you want to feel like you just want to like pause like reality for a second. And to be honest with you, I also think like this relationship again is really real. Like I think that if these two people really were to find each other, I think that they would probably have that much time on their hands to have to kind of like problem solve. Like the thing, like that thing that happens in like a lot of romantic movies where like they're getting close and then they kind of like have like a falling out and they get back together. I think that wasn't like contrived at all. I think that was like really realistic. And like they both like call like their friends and it's kind of like, hey, so like this just happened. Also, apparently that scene with like on the phone, like that was all like timed like perfectly, like in sync. Did you guys like see that on IMDb or something like that? Cause I was curious, like, oh, like how did
I remember
yeah.
reading something about that, but I don't remember all the details of what I read for that scene.
Yeah,
I
basically like it's like three different rooms and all room like the three rooms had a like a phone line connecting each other and they all had to basically like talk they all had to like not only like know their lines, but, like know like how long to pause. I forget how many like takes it
Oh
took.
wow.
But that's like pretty awesome. I don't know. That's pretty cool. I couldn't even imagine being an actor. Could you guys imagine being actors and
I
like
think
saying the same lines like 30 times?
that part I
Well,
would never imagine doing.
you
But
could
I
ask
think
anybody who's been in a Kubrick film how many times they had to do their lines.
Or
137
Fincher.
times.
Is Fincher mean?
I don't think
He's
he's
just
mean.
exact.
Yeah,
Uh,
he's not. I don't think he's mean. I think he's just like very exact with what he wants.
I don't
Gotcha.
think. Well, I think Kubrick was outwardly abusive to his
Oh yeah,
actors.
yeah,
I think
for
Fincher's
sure.
just like kind of a dick, and it's just like, come on now. I know you were like compulsive to like get the perfect scene, but like this person's been doing this scene 200 times.
I saw an
Um,
article where like Quentin Tarantino, like someone I think on set of Django Unchained, like somebody's cell phone went off. He like stopped the scene, yelled at everybody, found a bucket, and told everybody put your phones in.
Oh my.
They're in school.
you know,
Sorry, I
it's
don't know. I just had to
interesting
say that.
too. I think
for
that
for me, this was I think the third or fourth time that I've seen this. Um, I think I watched this sometime post college for the first time. Um, I I had definitely seen other Rob Reiner films before this, so like I was a big Princess Bride fan. I've seen Stand By Me. I'd seen Spinal Tap, and watching this again just reinforces how great of a romantic comedy this is. Because even in 2023, it feels fresh
Mhm.
because I think romantic comedies are one of the most formulaic and boring subgenres of film out there because it's just like Hallmark has just made a cookie cutter, just conveyor belt of BS. Netflix has done it, and it's just all the same crap. And this feels fresh and relatable. And as somebody who married somebody who disappeared for their life for 2.5 years and got back together and reconnected and stuff like that. It's just like all that stuff's real. And I appreciate the story structure. I appreciate the little interludes shaking up the narrative structure of the film. There's some really, like Matt, what you were touching on with that scene with the phones. It's like I don't think Rob Reiner gets enough credit for being a dynamic and interesting director. And he was a fantastic director. And then all of a sudden, just like not everybody has it like Scorsese that could keep making masterpieces well into their 80s. It's just like he had an amazing run, Rob Reiner, as a director, and this is one of those big gems of it. And I think the chemistry between Billy Crystal and Meg Ryan are perfect. Their dynamic is great. This is like so Billy Crystal of a role. And like I don't know Meg Ryan well enough as an actress to be like this was such a Meg Ryan role. I've never seen Sleepless in Seattle or You've Got Mail or anything like that. Uh well, thank you, Matt. Those are Matt's quick reviews of Sleepless in Seattle and We Got Mail. It's fun having I think Carrie Fisher and Bruno Kirby do a great job in their
Mhm.
supporting roles. I also love how they fall in love like bam. Like that scene with the taxi should
Oh
not
yeah.
be as funny as it is, but it's absolutely hilarious how quickly they get in that taxi and ditch them.
Also that scene with the with the coffee table, and then how that just explodes into like
I think
I would totally, yeah, I would totally believe that that was something Carrie Fisher would have punched up because she does have a lot of experience punching up scripts. She does have that knack for comedy.
and it's very interesting because like I had watched The Burbs the same day that I watched this, and I'm like, wait a minute,
what's that?
it's a dark comedy from Joe Dante, and it's from 1989, and Carrie Fisher was also in it. So
Okay.
it was a big year for Carrie Fisher. It was a Tom Hanks starring film, like Bruce Dern is in it, and a couple other people from the 80s. Uh
Recommend.
100%.
I heard
100%
you
recommend.
describe it. I heard you describe it as the Addams family from the perspective of the neighbors.
Yep.
Oh, that's fantastic.
And it's that kind of thing where it's just like there's the weird neighbors, and it's like how all the normal people would react to them. And it's from Joe Dante, who made Gremlins and stuff. So like it has a really dark sense of humor. But like this film is what I think the most impressive thing about this film is it creates conversation. Like literally while we were watching it, because Joe and Matt came over and watched it with Jess and I, and you know, can a man tell a female friend how attractive they are?
Mhm.
It's like, can you say something like that? Is that okay? And it's just like there's so many very relatable and human kinds of interactions in this film that make you think about stuff. It's like, can you be friends? Can you be friends with a woman you don't find attractive? And it's just like I have a lot of female friends kind of thing. It's just like you have all these conversations, and the fact that Nora Ephron's screenplay is that accessible to be able to create a lot of conversation about it. Now, before we jump into some more details about the film, I do want to have a couple of fun exchanges here. So, we bringing Harry and Sally to Applebee's?
Hell yeah.
No, no,
Come on.
no. We
It's
get
going to
kicked
be a
out.
show
That's a
and
family
everybody's going to like
establishment.
look over at the table and
That
everybody's
is
going
a
to have something to
family
talk
bar
about.
and grill, Joe. She's going to be having fake orgasms in the middle of the
Could you
Applebee's.
imagine? You'd have to like you would never be able to go to the same restaurant again. You'd have to like slum it in a cheesecake factory from now
Matt,
on.
let's be honest. Haven't we
Whoa,
seen
wait a minute,
wonderful?
Matt.
Well,
We're slumming it if we get thrown into Applebee's after getting kicked out of Cheesecake Factory. Cheesecake Factory is a classy establishment to get drunk on a Christmas Eve when you're mad at your family. Just look at Step Brothers.
I thought you were
kicked out, and we did get kicked out of Cheesecake Factory too, mind you, because of our reservation. If you remember that time.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we did get kicked out of Cheesecake Factory that time.
At least we didn't get banned. But here's an interesting question: would you rather go on a double date with Harry and Sally or Marie and Jess?
Harry and Sally.
Hands down. They also lose points because their wedding cake had coconut in it, and I don't like coconut. I'm sorry.
What? What? What's the story about coconut?
Their wedding cake had coconut. Apparently, I don't like coconut.
Like coconut is evil. Like I don't know. I don't know.
We have decided that Marie and Jess are not a good couple that we want to hang out with because they have coconut cake. Okay.
No, Harry and Sally had coconut cake. Yeah.
Are we going on a double date with Jess and Marie because you don't like Harry and Sally's wedding cake?
Yes.
No, that's the funny thing. I like how confident you are there. It's so true, though. I mean, I would totally,
I'm still going on a double date with Harry and Sally. I just thought the whole coconut thing was just an aside, like that we were talking about. But no, like despite them putting coconut in their cake, I double date with them because they seem like they have some pretty good talks. So,
how about you, Joe?
I'll stick with Harry and Sally. At the end of the day, I feel like we said, it's all about conversations, and they know how to bring in with a good conversation.
Until it gets awkward, until like Harry starts like going off on one of his tangents, and it's like,
nobody invited your neuroticism to Applebee's.
Let's not forget though, the beauty of those conversations they have in restaurants is the reactions they're getting from the extras. I want to ask this to you: do you think those are genuine reactions coming from the extras when they're hearing that? Or is it staged? Because it is so believable on how people are reacting when they're talking about the stuff that they're talking about.
You know what? I mean, I haven't really read any like behind the scenes stuff about this movie, but I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if the extras were just told, okay, this is the scene. Harry and Sally are having lunch. Just just play it off as it is, and then she probably started doing the sounds, and then they were like, "What's going on?"
Kind of like an Eric Andre or Jackass sort of reaction. People just be like, "Okay, this is happening now."
This is a classy movie, like.
But what are some of the things that stick out to everybody specifically about the film?
So I was writing this down, a couple things that came up when you guys were talking. One thing that I noticed when we're talking about conversations, and I think this is something that maybe I'll pose the question to everybody. Do you think that this is something Judd Apatow really took to heart?
I really don't want to talk about Judd Apatow right in this.
Really?
Because you know what?
I'm curious now. Why don't you?
Like I want to leave Judd Apatow out of this because you know what? I like a couple of his movies, but like I feel like with When Harry Met Sally, the conversations I feel like everything has a purpose in this movie, whereas with Judd Apatow's movies, yeah, they're entertaining, but I've always viewed them as a collection of skits,
routines. It's like setup. It's like
a collection of bits loosely structured to make a story, and oftentimes a story that's like 20 minutes too long.
Right. There's at least a little bit more of a focus. There's a little bit more of a direction.
Just really quick, I remember my friends and I we saw This Is 40 in theaters, and then when it was done, we all turned to each other and we were like, how long was that?
2 hours and 20 minutes.
And then you went to go see My Dinner with Andre, and you're like, well, that felt shorter.
Could Judd Apatow have gotten some influence from this? Maybe. I I feel like
But what
I'm
movies would
trying
have
to
been?
think of anybody like I would say like yeah, this definitely like influenced their work
I just
specifically.
felt, you know
What?
what it was? I just felt reminded of a couple scenes in Knocked Up where they're in the restaurant, right? And it's between Seth Rogen's character and the late Harold Ramis, where they're just talking about what it means and what it's like to be a father. Not obviously with dating, but like that sort of, I guess to me it came up because like I always felt with Billy Crystal's humor, it's observational, but at the same time, it's it's engaging. It doesn't necessarily, I mean, I think there is a punchline to anything he's saying, but there's even if it's, you know, not funny or meant to be funny, like he could be reading from the dictionary and like or in some cases just recording a voicemail, right? Um, but it's still entertaining. And speaking of which, just another thing that came up to me. We're gonna drop the Judd Apatow because it seemed like that was dead. Um,
No, no,
um,
no, 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 it's
no,
fine.
I was
I'm just.
curious about it because it just made me think about it. But like,
Well,
I wanted to go back to what Matt was talking about with that one scene that had like that, real time when it was being filmed. One, when we were watching the film together, it reminded me of how like there aren't that many filmmakers that I think really capture the essence of time in real time in movies. And the only filmmaker that I can think of that does it so well is Christopher Nolan. Like he always knows how to construct a film and make you realize how much time is passing, whether it be a huge amount of time or a short amount of time. You know, that when you look at the filming technique in this movie where they're using, the um, the couples as like transitions to different points in their lives. And I think you even mentioned it too, Matt, where you're like, yeah, that's to help sequence how far they're going into the relationship. And then you take a minute and you realize they're going from being college age, which is probably like 19 to 20 years old, to being in their mid 30s. That's like 15 to 20 years, right, of time passing by. And that is a really long stretch of time that maybe remind me of like certain films that Nolan did, which do take cost that much time, or in Interstellar's case, like 100 years of time. But that's probably a conversation for a different time.
Before we move away from Christopher Nolan, I would just like to acknowledge that The Dark Knight Rises does not handle passage of time
Unfortunately,
very well. Just
I
for the
blame the studio.
record.
yeah.
I'm gonna blame the
but
studio on that one.
but I do think it's an interesting use of how time passes, and I feel like this is a kind of film that I know, Joe, I think you were talking about it a little bit earlier during your opening piece about like this is a kind of film where it's just like they don't fall in love too fast.
Mhm.
Because like it does take them over a decade to really weed through all their reservations and their concerns with each other to finally open up and be with each other. And I respect that because so many romantic comedies at this point is just like in one weekend. Where it's just like
Meanwhile,
they hate each other. And in one weekend they learn to not hate each other. Like you could tell they didn't like each other in the opening part of this film, and then they're away for years and get stuck on that airplane together, and you can feel some of the barriers falling down a little bit, and then time skips again, and then you have Billy Crystal creeping in a bookstore staring over at her, and then for the most part it sticks that time for most of the film, and then you really do get to feel them become friends and become more than friends. And God, that whole scene where they have sex for the first time was so uncomfortable. Like the whole after part, I'm just like, I wanted to jump through the screen and smack Harry so bad. It's like, you love her. don't throw this off the rails. And, I got invested. And that's what this film does. You want them to be together. And Rob Reiner's direction with the tone and everything and the performances and Nora Ephron's writing, it all brings that together that like I get so invested in their love story in this because like you really care about them and you really understand them as people. And you can see like these people exist somewhere. Maybe each of us have met a Harry and Sally. Maybe one of us is a Harry. Maybe one of us is a Sally.
Well, I'm a
And
Harry.
in our relationships. And it's that kind of thing where that's how relatable this film could be.
I think we've all been a Sally at some point, just like being in a restaurant and eating something delicious and just wanting to like
Orgasm.
well, no, no, but let people know about it. But let people know how much we're enjoying ourselves.
I did get
Hey,
a
Vinny,
brief
there's
moment.
nothing wrong about enjoying yourself in the middle of a restaurant.
Oh, I didn't mean it like that, Shane. Come on now.
I mean, they are at one of the best, New York delis at its time. Eating a pastrami sandwich at like, I mean, I would get off on eating it. No lie.
Every time I go to John's Pizzeria at Times Square and get those John's garlic knots with the cheese and the fresh garlic on it.
Now, what's that other pizza place, Shane, Hell's Kitchen?
The pizza place I took you is John's Pizzeria at Times Square.
That's the same place?
Yep.
Gotcha. Okay. Also,
Matt
Joe.
knows. You went there and experienced it.
Yeah, because I was
How about
that was a Bronx tale. Joe, I don't know about Judd Apatow because to be honest, I would need to like rewatch all of his movies. I feel bad saying that, but I used to like some of his stuff, but I truly don't really remember like his
it was the late
style.
2000s? We all were.
Yeah, I don't know. It's been a while, and I don't know. But I remember finding it really funny. I just stopped watching his stuff. But the movie so in my head I was like, okay, so what movie? What's like the best like recent romantic comedy that I've seen late like recently? And the one that came to mind for me was there's this movie called Intergalactic on Netflix.
Huh.
This movie like it has Kid Cudi and some other lady that I always like she's a fantastic
Oh,
actress, but I always forget her name.
and it's
Incredibly funny
animated,
though.
right? With
Yes,
rotoscope.
animated. Yeah,
Oh,
animated exactly. Has like if you like hip hop, definitely like absorb the music as well.
do
But
they
that's
play
an
Beastie
excellent
Boys?
romantic comedy. I'm also I think it's set in New York as well, or at least some kind of like nondescript cityscape. But yeah, definitely highly recommend that. Intergalactic.
Do they play the Beastie Boys Intergalactic Planetary?
Doesn't that have like a robot? Yeah,
Mentioning Flintstones a couple of times.
You said it's
no,
called
I don't think they do.
Intergalactic.
Enter, yeah, Intergalactic.
Oh no, enter like en
Mhm.
intergalactic.
I
Intergalactic.
get it if you don't consider Beastie Boys hip hop. They are more alternative rock now.
Oh my
I was
God,
on a
Jessica
plane. I was watching a
Williams.
show, and a Beastie Boys song came on. It was uh wait, what was it like?
All I have to say is Jessica Williams is absolutely amazing, and I love her, especially in Shrinking, which that show is a revelation. But anyway,
That's her
um,
name, Jessica Williams.
yep,
Gotcha.
I need to
Awesome.
watch Intergalactic now.
Oh, what's the name of that? Rhymin' and Stealin'. I don't know anything about Beastie Boy except for that one song, Rhymin' and Stealin'. And it's like
Oh,
that's a great song. Alibaba and the 40. Never mind. But yeah. So when Harry met Sally. A
I
good movie. Did that
And
get
you know
any
what's
awards?
great too is not only is the like romantic relationships great, but just the friendships. Like I love watching Jess and Harry like hitting balls at a batting cage and then like nonchalantly doing the wave
Oh
at the
yeah.
Giants game. They're like having whole conversations and just like get up.
now the
Perfectly
reality
timed.
though, when watching that is like, I don't know if that's genuine timing on how that would happen in a football game. Like it goes a little bit too quickly for each down for them to be doing the waves unless they're just like getting a first down or getting yards or not getting pushed back that many times.
Only the 1/6 of the stadium that they could afford extras for was doing the wave, Joe. Which is why it was moving so fast. But it's just this makes me want to see Billy Crystal in more things.
Yeah.
Like, why can't he pop up on Only Murders in the Building? I would love to see him and Steve Martin short in doing stuff like that. And
You're right.
I just he's such a hilarious guy. And
Yeah.
like Meg Ryan is ridiculously charming and she really has her moments too. Like this film would not work without the perfect pairing of actors because it relies so much on fully fleshing out these characters into like meaningful people that we can connect with and really understand where they're coming from because like it isn't something that just relies on like okay, people just fall in love out of nowhere. We all know this, right? As movies have tricked us into thinking
So
this
Snow
is
White's not realistic. You don't just see a guy and fall in love.
it's not like the landlord from Spider-Man who's just like, no, you just say, I am a good man,
I am a good
you're a
woman.
good woman, I am good man. That's how our grandparents did it. That's not how courting by love works. And sometimes it takes 15 years, like this movie. And, you know, it really does work. And I love, like, I can't specifically say, like, what about Rob Reiner's direction, like, makes it so great, but, like, he just knows how to find the perfect bits of what you need to make that genre work.
Yeah.
And it made some perfection here.
Why did he stop like directing as much or in total?
Well, he still directs. It's just not like he did.
It's not as good as what's come before.
Yeah,
Let's just say
he
that.
did like the bucket list. He did.
Rumor has it.
Yeah, LBJ. The Woody Harrelson is Lyndon B. Johnson movie.
He's also acting too. I think that also plays a role into it as well.
Yeah.
Probably dips into his schedule.
I did enjoy him popping up. Obviously, he was fantastic in Wolf of Wall Street. Who spends $20,000 on one dinner, Jordy? What did these sides cure cancer? Who
Yes, it does cure
heck
cancer.
is calling on a night I'm trying to watch The Equalizer?
You're missing The Equalizer.
Hello. Oh yes, darling. It's just like, Dad, it's the 80s today, from the neck down, just shaved. No bush? I was always a fan of Bush. And it's just like, I just love how Martin Scorsese got Rob Reiner, Jon Favreau, and Spike Jonze all pop up in his movie in a variety of roles in that. But like, Rob Reiner's a hilarious actor and obviously a really talented director. And when he had the right material, he really made some magic happen. And I just wish there was more romantic comedies like this that don't feel like they like. And it's really tough right now because it's so hard to get romantic comedies out into a theater right now. Because so many people, I think, have gotten used to like, well, I just watch rom-coms on Hallmark and Netflix.
Nope.
And it's just
You're watching
like
Christmas marathons. You're not watching real rom-coms.
it's just like things like Spoiler Alert and Bros and at least Ticket to Paradise made money. But I'm pretty sure because it was George Clooney and Julia
I
Roberts.
like how like the response is like, well, it made money.
Well, I mean, like, and you know what, like, it's a shame, like, I mean, not to get too far away from When Harry Met Sally, but just like with romantic comedies, like, it's sad that just like what the viewing habits are now, because romantic comedies, like, those are a lot of fun to see in theaters. Like I remember my brother and I going opening weekend for for Crazy Stupid Love, and it was like a packed theater, and like you could tell people were having a lot of fun, like a lot of fun with it, and like especially like during like the like that during like the like the family reunion scene with that whole Emma Stone reveal. Like, people were like, "Oh my God!"
Nana.
Yeah, like, like people were engaged with it, they were having fun with it. So I do hope that, like, there's I do hope that, like, romantic comedies, like if not completely rebuild, like, somewhat rebuild what they've had in the past, in terms of
Mhm.
like people going out to the theaters to see them.
That damn David Lindhagen. Freaking accountants ruin everything.
D- David Lindhagen cuckolded me.
David Lindhagen cuckolding me. He made a cuckold out of me. Uh, it's just like, oh my God, not to go off on a tangent, but I laughed so hard when Ryan Gosling just like, what's with the New Balance? What are you in a fraternity? And he just chucks them, which I wear New Balance, so just like, hot fired. But like, that's true. Like, I'm trying to think the last time we got something as big as Crazy Stupid Love. Like, I was super excited for Lovebirds, but then COVID happened and they got bought by Netflix, which I still think that's a really funny movie with Kumail and Issa Rae. I think that's a really funny rom-com. But like, I just wish that like I wish that bigger directors who like take that chance and make a romantic comedy
Mhm.
and like bring some nuance to it, because I feel like that's what Rob Reiner did with this. Like, he brought some nuance to it and a lot of heart, because Rob Reiner can bring a lot of heart to things. You watch The Princess Bride, that's nothing but heart. And I think this film really benefits from feeling fresh and different. And like, this movie shouldn't feel that fresh and different in 2023. I think that's just really sad to actually think about. Like, rom-coms are in the state that they are, where like you could watch something from what, 30 34 years ago and just be like, wow, this feels really fresh and interesting. It's just like, should it though?
Maybe it's
But
like a numbers thing where like there's so many bad ones that come out that like the ones that Matt's bringing up, like Intergalactic, are the ones that do show up every once in a while. Whereas the success rate with like other types of genres where I mean, let's superheroes is the big thing right now. The numbers
realistically,
are better.
I think it should be on the same level as horror movies. These shouldn't be that expensive. And how
But it's
horror
funny.
fans go out, romantic people should go out and check out rom-coms opening weekend and make its budget back.
Well,
It's
well,
amazing
well,
how,
well,
yeah.
well, it's funny you bring up the whole thing with budgets, because like, isn't that why Netflix dropped the new Nancy Meyers movie? Because like the budget got too, but like the budget, it was like a romantic comedy, and the budget was like 130 $140 million. Like, I mean, like,
And 120 of that were just the payroll for the actors
yeah,
in it.
yeah. I mean, I understand I understand, like, you pay a lot for the actors, but at the same time, I mean, like, I mean, there's got to be a way to, like, I mean, well, there is a way to make romantic comedies cheaper. There's no reason for a romantic comedy to cost more than like 50 or 60 million. Like, no reason.
Also, I
Like,
think that like this movie kind of does something that maybe like a lot of other romantic comedies don't do, where it's kind of like it's not a four quadrant movie because there's like sex and cursing in it, but like in terms of it, definitely not saying, okay, our audience, we just want like I guess like stereotypically, we just want females like butts in the seats. Like we kind of like want everybody. Like this movie
Mhm.
Yeah.
is kind of interesting because it's not like maybe some guys might be like apprehensive at like watching like this movie or other movies like it because they might think that it's going to be kind of like, well, the guy is wrong or something like that. But like, no, like everybody, it's like incredibly realistic. There's no like right or wrong like perspective. Well, I guess maybe there could be, I suppose, on a personal level, but I don't think the movie sets out to do that. I think this movie is like pretty like fair and charitable to like everyone's humanness, I guess, kind of. So I think maybe like a lot of romantic comedies, unfortunately, maybe make the mistake of being like centric to like one side, and
Like
it's kind of
marketing.
like there's probably like so much money that's just like out the door like already. If you made a movie that's kind of like more appealing to other people, I feel like that would be pretty chill. Like Intergalactic, that you kind of have to, you almost kind of have to, at least like the way that I'm thinking about it, you kind of have to like kind of a little bit go out of your way to kind of see to see kind of like a little bit of shared DNA, but then when you see it, it's like, oh, okay, like it's there, it's definitely there. Like I feel like if movies are made to loop in more people and maybe not have movies that are kind of like some kind of like uh, some kind of like half-hearted facsimile of When Harry Met Sally, but actually kind of like actually trying to do something different, but also kind of like it's kind of like knowing you have to know the rules before you break them. I feel like if there's more movies like that, then I think like that's kind of like the formula. Guys, I think we should write a movie. I think we should
I've
write
been
a
saying
movie.
that for 5 years.
Yeah,
Just
I feel like yeah,
It
Joe's been
is
saying that
true.
long before
Just-
I
any
have
of
been saying
us.
that for a while. Like for Shane mentioned, is it okay if I share your concept of what you wanted to? I think you
just
came up with the
just
screenplay
pull
for it
just
already.
pull our experiences together and make a movie. A th-
Ah,
a 300-page opus.
no, I've,
300
I've been
pages
saying
of
that for a while
focus.
too. I know. I think you finished the screenplay a couple of years ago, Matt. Right?
Yeah, that was fun as hell, and now it just haunts my Google Doc. But
But
for the past
guys,
five
Yeah, I
You know,
got
years,
I've,
guys,
four
you
and
know,
a half of them.
guys, I'm sorry, just really quick. I have to get going, but we'll I'll meet up with you guys soon. Okay.
okay, Vinny, hang in there.
All right. Take it easy, guys. Take care.
But yeah, it's the kind of thing where it's just like this. You know what? This is the kind of movie that kind of like, you know what? I want to write movies. Like
Right.
it's one of those kinds of things that's just that inspiring to just sit and just see a perfect romance film just play out in front of you. And that's why I kept harping on like I wish more films like this would happen. But it's not a thriving genre.
and it's not an indie movie either. Like at
Right.
least not to my definition of what an indie movie would be. Like this is like these are big names even back then.
Yeah, this
It,
was a studio film.
it's one of those things where like so many it's when the stars align. Like we tend to underestimate with films, it's a collaborative effort
Mhm.
where it's a lot of things are going into pot, and easily one thing could have had this go off and it would have just been another standard rom-com. It's kind of like when people talk about Ghostbusters where they tried remaking it. They got close to it, but they had to go back to the original source. But it's like all these elements have to be right in order for it to be just right, and it's really hard to do that in most movies that
But
it's
then
great when one
that
does.
other movie with the Stranger Things kid, I personally liked because I feel like it it didn't try too hard to be like the original Ghostbusters. Like it kind of like did its own thing
By
successfully for me.
basically all those elements coming together to be lightning in a bottle the same way the first one is, and it's
Until
really
it
very
brought back the
unique.
whole entire original Ghostbusters movie in the third act.
Oh,
I know you don't like that. I liked that. I enjoyed that.
I,
I'm
I
just
I didn't
I'm
like it
just
at
pointing
first.
out the fact that they basically redid the whole entire first movie in the third act of the new movie.
I know we're spoiling it, right? But like at the end of it, it's weird how they kind of drop the family, and just go back to New York and just become Ghostbusters 3. If you really think about it, right?
Is that getting a sequel?
I
Yep,
hope so. They kind of teased it.
it is.
They
Okay.
teased it. Well, it's gonna be like the DCEU, just like here's a movie that's never gonna happen. Here's another one. Here's another one.
Well, at least it's more forgiving than how Disney's handling the canon to Star Wars outside of Disney Plus series.
Well, now these are whole other conversations for
I
another
know.
time.
But
Do we have
take
any other thoughts about When Harry Met Sally?
I just
Sorry,
want to
I'm
mention, I
listening.
apologize if it looks like I'm getting off camera, but my little friend Matt might recognize. I don't know if I can bring the camera down to show her. I think you may have seen her once, Shane. But see if I
Oh
can
my.
grab it over. If I could show Piper. She's blurred out, isn't she? There she is. She's like a Loch Ness monster right now. There she is.
Loch Ness
There's
Hey,
Monster.
Piper. There she is. Remember
But
Matt?
Oh, I remember Piper. I
Yeah,
babysat Piper like a couple of times when you were at work.
a couple times, and she always had a very particular personality. She still does, on top of the fact that she's getting a lot older. But she decided to come say hi. But back to Harry Met Sally. One, I
we
want to go eat at John's Pizzeria now. Two, Carrie Fisher. I want more reasons to love her. And three, I need to go rewatch All in the Family for John for Rob Reiner. I love that those are the things I'm coming up with right now from our
Matt, do you have
conversation.
any other final thoughts about when Harry Met Sally?
Um, I think this movie does a really good job at kind of like depicting like relationships and love as like something that like takes work. I think that those were like I liked the friends uh, mostly. Sometimes the friends were given like crappy advice or whatever, but like I liked the friends in the movie. Excuse me. I think that uh did I like the music in this movie? I don't know if I did. But I did like the music in Intergalactic, so everybody that's watching this needs to watch Intergalactic like ASAP. It's on Netflix, and yeah, that's basically it. It's a dope movie. I don't have what she's having. Like it's funny like when you actually see where that line comes from. Like even though you've heard that 100 times, like it works. Like the
Mhm.
timing, like it works. It works.
And you
It's an
rewatch it,
actually funny movie. It's an actual
yeah,
funny movie.
and you rewatch it over and over again. It has rewatchability, like you're discovering something new that you didn't know before. Like the last time I saw it with you, Shane, is that it's the audiences, it's the extras' reactions that really, made that scene so much better than what it had to be. And I'm sure if I would see that scene again, there's probably gonna be something else that I didn't notice.
Well, if you haven't seen when Harry Met Sally, you better go check this out because this is truly a classic and better than 99% of romantic comedies that you're going to watch today. And check out Rob Reiner's filmography. He had a lot of bangers in the 1980s into the early 90s. But thank you as always for tuning in from Joe and Matt and Vinnie who had to leave us and Jim, Alex, and Kevin who couldn't make it, and Shane. Thank you for always tuning in and supporting the Development Hell podcast.
That's my piano.